The feeling of self-devaluation is a pervasive experience. It manifests as a constant judging voice, incessant comparison with others, the feeling of never being enough. Many try to fight this feeling, to build self-esteem through achievements, external validation, or positive thinking techniques, wondering how it's possible to remove this sense of low self-worth. Yet, these attempts often fail or bring only temporary relief. This happens because they are trying to solve the problem in the wrong place. Self-devaluation is not an adult's thinking error. It is an emotional imprint left in childhood. You cannot remove low self-worth without first understanding how and why it was formed. To heal this wound, it is necessary to analyze 5 fundamental psychological dynamics. The primary imprint of value. Self-esteem, or its absence, begins to form in the first moments of life. The newborn has no cognition of self. Its existence is pure sensation. When it experiences discomfort, hunger, cold, fear of the void, it cries. If the caregiver, the mother, or whoever takes her place responds promptly, the newborn has a fundamental experience. Its discomfort is soothed. It is fed, changed, cradled, reassured. Through this gesture, the child not only learns that the world is a safe place, but receives a deeper message. You are important. If, on the contrary, that response is delayed or absent, the child learns that its distress is not relevant. It begins to perceive that when it needs help, no one will take care of it. It is crucial to understand that this mechanism has nothing to do with the gender or orientation of the parents. This is not about predefined father and mother roles. The child needs only one thing: to be held, protected, and loved. The ability to love and identify with the needs of a creature is a matter of emotional maturity, not heterosexuality or homosexuality. The newborn, protected and dressed after its bath, held by adult hands, feels secure. If the adult is insensitive to its fear of the void, to its request for containment, they are communicating a message of non-love. Self-esteem, therefore, is not a choice. It is the result of a physical and affective experience. The child understands it has value if those on whom its life depends transmit that value through care. If this care is missing, how can a child growing up develop an intrinsic sense of their own value? The great illusion. The inversion of blame. When a child grows up in an environment that does not love, consider, or recognize its needs, it develops a sense of being worth nothing. Here, a fundamental psychological defense mechanism is triggered. For the child, accepting that its parents do not love it is intolerable. It would be equivalent to psychic annihilation, as its survival depends entirely on them. Faced with this unacceptable reality, the child's mind performs an inversion. It prefers to think it is the one who is wrong, rather than admit to having parents who were incapable of loving it. It convinces itself that if it wasn't loved, it's because it wasn't good enough, wasn't obedient, was a burden. This illusion, however painful, is preferable to the truth because it allows the child to preserve an idealized image of the parents. Many adults rationalize this lack, saying, "They loved me, but poor things, they didn't know how." But love for a child is not a matter of scientific knowledge or practice. It is a matter of identification. When a parent loves, they identify with the child. They understand what it needs, recognize its fears, and feel its need for reassurance. If they don't recognize it or think the child shouldn't be reassured, they simply do not love it. This inversion of blame is the root of self-devaluation. The adult continues to believe they are wrong because as a child, that was the only possible explanation for their suffering. How does this lack of love, often disguised as good intentions, manifest in daily parenting behaviors? The myth of the spoiled child. There is a widespread erroneous belief about what it means to spoil a child. It is often thought that a spoiled child is one who receives everything they ask for. But is a parent who tries to please a child spoiling them? Not necessarily. Children do not ask for things constantly if they receive the emotional nourishment they need. They become demanding and needy only when they do not receive affection. They feel unhappy, perceive a fundamental lack, and begin to ask for objects, thinking they can satisfy themselves that way. When they get the object, however, the anger or dissatisfaction remains. They often mistreat the object received because it wasn't what they wanted. They needed affection, but received a substitute. The truly spoiled children are those who are given many things to get them out of the way. They are the children placed in front of the television, the computer, loaded with toys as compensation for the parent's emotional absence. Research in the field of consumer psychology has highlighted this phenomenon. A study published in the Journal of Consumer Research found that children with low self-esteem, often stemming from a sense of affective insecurity, show a greater tendency towards materialism. They use material goods as a compensation strategy for an emotional void and attempt to buy the value they did not receive internally. A child who grows up in an emotionally healthy family does not need to constantly take refuge in screens or objects. They seek connection because they have learned that relationships with others are a source of well-being. This confusion between affection and objects is one of the ways parents deny the child's real needs, reinforcing the idea that their feelings do not matter. If the child grows up with this imprint, how will they try to fill that void as an adult? The trap of comparison and external validation. The adult who did not receive esteem in childhood lives in a constant state of inadequacy. The fixation on one's own evaluation is in itself a symptom of this lack. If a person constantly thinks about how much they are worth, whether they are better or worse than others, it means they do not possess a sense of internal value. Comparing oneself to others is a direct sign of self-devaluation. It is not an attempt to improve, but a desperate attempt to overcome the sense of inadequacy given by the parents. This search for external validation does not stop at comparison. It extends to the search for partners, success, popularity. The unloved adult continues to search for someone to love them, deluding themselves that this can heal the original wound. Often, however, this search is distorted by the imprint received. They unconsciously seek partners who do not know how to love, who despise, betray, or control, because that emotional model is the only one they know. It is a tragic attempt to recreate the past story, hoping this time to change the ending and succeed in being loved. Even external success, like that of great actors or public figures, does not appease the sense of emptiness. As long as the success is there, it provides hope for redemption. But when it fades, as often happens in old age, depression emerges, because no external success can change the fact that the inner child did not feel loved. As the famous psychoanalyst Alice Miller pointed out, it is not possible to change what happened in the past. The negligence suffered in childhood is an immutable fact. However, it is possible to change the relationship the adult has with that past. It is possible and necessary to stop denying that pain to begin actively caring for one's wounded inner child. If no form of external love, no partner, and no success can compensate for the missed love from parents, What then is the only possible solution? The solution, the only love that heals. No form of love received as an adult can compensate for the love missed in childhood. It cannot heal the wound. Adult love is an exchange between equals. It is not the love of a parent for a child. That child, inside the adult, continues to feel unloved because its historical experience cannot be erased. The only person who can love that inner child is the adult themselves. Healing begins the moment the adult stops searching outside and turns their awareness inward. It is about revisiting one's childhood, not to accuse, but to understand. Understanding one's inner child, understanding what it suffered, what it desired, and recognizing that there was nothing wrong with that child. The child's only fault was being born into a family that didn't know how to love, perhaps because the parents themselves had not received love and had never learned to love their own inner child. When the adult can see this, they can begin to feel tenderness for that part of themselves. They can begin to parent themselves, understand their need, validate their feelings, protect themselves from situations that repeat the trauma. By loving one's inner child, one stops being dependent on others for validation. One stops seeking external approval because the most important approval comes from within. Parents often do not know their children. They project images, desires, expectations onto them. They don't ask, "How are you? What do you think? Are you happy?" The parent who truly understands knows they have a stranger to discover, not an object to mold. The adult must do this work for themselves, discover who they are beyond the received imprint, and give themselves the esteem they never had. The root of self-devaluation, therefore, does not lie in a present defect, but in a past absence. The solution is not to try to earn a value that others did not give us, but to learn, as adults, to give ourselves that unconditional love and esteem that our inner child never received. A path to know yourself better and finally live well.